It was a lazy afternoon in the Griffin living room. Peter was sprawled across the couch with a bag of chips, mindlessly flipping through TV channels, each one more disappointing than the last. "Why is there never anything good on?" he grumbled, as reruns of ridiculous reality shows and gloomy whale documentaries played. Lois, meanwhile, was in the kitchen, rhythmically chopping vegetables and rolling her eyes at Peter's complaints. She told him maybe if he picked up a book or helped her with dinner for once, he wouldn't be whining so much. Peter, of course, just tossed a chip in the air and caught it with a grin, claiming the only book he needed was the menu at the Drunken Clam. Then, with a mischievous twinkle, he launched into a memory of the time he tried to become a motivational speaker. In his flashback, Peter stood at a podium in a too-tight suit, addressing a bored crowd with the enthusiasm of a man who thought Costco samples were a metaphor for life. He pointed dramatically at someone in the back, shouting about seizing the day and botching Latin phrases, only to be met with groans and a flying tomato. When the memory faded, reality came rushing back as Chris burst into the room, holding a crumpled paper, his face flushed with embarrassment. He yelled that the kids at school wouldn't stop teasing him about his book report. They'd called him Pig Boy, mocking his analysis of Charlotte's Web. Brian, sitting coolly with a martini in one hand and his laptop in the other, tried to calm him down. It was just high school, he reasoned. Kids would forget soon. But he also reminded Peter to close his browser tabs before his work presentation, hinting at some previous embarrassing incident. Peter nervously chuckled as another flashback played. He was in front of a room full of coworkers, frantically clicking through slides as searches for inflatable dinosaurs and funniest cat fails appeared on the big screen. Lois, sighing at the chaos, suggested Peter take Chris to the arcade to cheer him up. Peter instantly brightened at the idea, reminiscing about winning Lois a stuffed giraffe during their dating days, right before her ex, Mikey Bagshaw, had appeared with his ridiculous shamrock tattoos. The memory of that carnival night still made Peter puff out his chest like he had something to prove. Soon, Peter and Chris were standing in front of an arcade claw machine. Chris sulked, while Peter focused on the controls like a man on a mission. Chris mumbled about being called Pig Boy again and wishing Wilbur wasn't his spirit animal. Peter brushed it off, declaring that the only spirit animal worth having was the one that won a knockoff Spider-Man doll. When the claw failed to grip the prize, Peter cursed the machine and compared it to the time he ran for mayor. A memory involving a ridiculous top hat, a hammer time policy proposal, and a very confused crowd. Peter slammed his hand against the side of the claw machine, scowling as the toy he'd almost won slipped back into the pile like it was mocking him. "This thing's rigged," he barked, earning a disapproving glance from a teenager behind him. Chris, still sulking with his hands stuffed into the pockets of his oversized hoodie, didn't even look up. "This isn't helping," he muttered. "Everyone still calls me Pig Boy. No claw machine can fix that." Peter crouched down beside his son with a look that was halfway between a pep talk and someone about to pitch a really bad idea. "Listen, Chris, you can't let those kids get to you. When life hands you humiliation, you prank the hell out of it." He stood up triumphantly. "That's what my old sensei would have told me. Or the guy from the bowling alley. I forget which." Chris gave a weak laugh, but Peter wasn't done. He pointed toward the golf course across the street like a man with a mission. "Come on, son. Nothing cheers a man up like yelling 4 and pretending you're Tiger Woods." Chris groaned but followed, because no matter how dumb his dad's ideas were, they usually ended up being memorable. At the golf course, Peter stood on the green in a pair of plaid pants and a shirt so loud it could blind a seagull. He gripped the club like it was a baseball bat and squinted at the ball like he was challenging it to a duel. "This is serious business, Chris," Peter declared. "Golf isn't just a game. It's a way of yelling at tiny white balls because your life's falling apart." Then, with all the grace of a man who'd learned sports from TV commercials, he swung wildly and completely missed. The ball stayed exactly where it was. Chris watched as the nearby golfers looked over with judgmental glares. "Dad, people are staring," he muttered. Peter swung again, sending the ball skimming off the grass and into a sand trap. "Good," Peter puffed. "Let 'em stare. Champions thrive under pressure." just like when I was a pilot for a day. That was Peter's cue for another one of his signature flashbacks. In his mind, he was wearing aviator sunglasses in the cockpit of a passenger plane. Quagmire sat next to him, sweating nervously. "Peter, are you sure you know what you're doing?" Quagmire asked. Peter waved him off confidently. "Relax, Quagmire. I watched Top Gun Maverick twice. I'm basically certified." He pressed a button that said eject, alarms screamed, and Quagmire yelled something very unprintable as the plane nosedived. Back in reality, Peter wiped a proud tear from his eye. Chris kicked the grass, overwhelmed. "Dad, I can't take it anymore. The teasing, the nicknames. I'm just going to move away forever." Peter nearly dropped his golf club. "Whoa, hold up, champ. You're not going anywhere." He put a hand on Chris's shoulder in a rare moment of sincerity. "You don't run away from jerks. You make the jerks regret ever messing with a Griffin. And lucky for you, I'm basically Quahog's prank champion." Later that night, Peter and Chris crept toward the school like two cartoon burglars. Chris held a flashlight, trembling. Peter carried a giant pumpkin that belonged to Joe for the upcoming county fair. "Okay," Peter whispered dramatically, "we're going to hide this baby in Principal Shepard's office. No one humiliates a Griffin and gets away with it." Chris hesitated. "Dad, what if we get caught?" Peter smirked. "Caught, kid. I once hid a live chicken in Quagmire's mailbox. He thought it was a love letter from a hawk. Trust me, I know stealth." Their stealth lasted exactly 14 seconds before the pumpkin rolled off the desk and smashed spectacularly on the floor. Peter froze. "Oh crap, Joe's gonna kill us. Quick, let's blame Stewie." At that very moment, Stewie sat in his crib sipping a juice box with the calm of a villain plotting world domination. "Ah," he muttered sarcastically. "Of course, blame the baby. Classic Griffin strategy." The next morning, Lois was standing in the kitchen with her hands on her hips when Peter shuffled in.